back again with a freaking pack show. Pitch clock, umps leaving, Jake Paul taking an L, LIV Golf, PGA, Dan Snyder, an ambidextrous pitcher and college stud. Then we're going to jump into world news with some Biden debt forgiveness, atomic bombs. We're going to be looking at people murdering other people. We're going to get into a lot this show. As you can tell, yet another solo chat with Chase. At this point, we're getting about 50-50. Reed's going to have to do some solo work. I'm going to need to go on a vacation here once Mr. Carter gets back, see how he likes doing a whole show by himself. But irregardless, he does have a lot going on personally, so we can forgive him for that. But I will never forgive the time that he has made me do this by myself. Just kidding. On that same note, though, we have had a loss in the extended Choate family. My family, one of my brother's roommates has passed, and want to send out condolences to his family, my brother. It's not a fun time. The kid's name, or I guess it was a fully grown man, he passed this afternoon. Truly a fun-loving, kind-hearted young man who, if all goes according to plan, is in God's hands right now, and hopefully he's at peace. That's the least of what I can say. He'll be missed, and hopefully that the loss doesn't affect everyone in too negative a way. I think we all need to see the bright side when it comes to people's passing, see what they brought to the table, what good they brought to the world. And this young man brought a lot of it. And so maybe not so much of a young man. I don't know what that age is where you graduate out. I guess once you're out of your 20s, I think young man status, maybe the gray area, it might be 35. I don't know, because you're technically over the hill at 30. So I'm not quite sure what denotes young man. I know like young adult is sort of that, 15 to 18 window. Then a true, or maybe that's a older teen. I really don't know. But let's get jumping in right now. Let's start in the sports world, because there was a couple of weird things in the kicking off of baseball this weekend. The pitch clock and some of the controversies that it could stir up came up this weekend, and none more prominent than with my Braves. They were playing the Red Sox. It was a 6-6 game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Braves were up because they were home. 3-2 count. Let's bring this up here so we can all see. And then sort of, again, people are feeling this out. This is day one of spring training, and sort of mayhem ensues. Let's make sure we got it here. Let's watch these 25 seconds. So 3-2 count. Okay. Conley is the guy coming in to pitch for the Red Sox. We literally have bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, 6-6. In the spring training, and unless you're maybe getting later on, you don't really go to over innings, especially on day one. Extra innings. But let's see what happens here. This I thought was pretty interesting.
And now what?
He's out.
They have called strike 3. Wow! This is mayhem! Oh! Automatic strike 3 called with the bases loaded in a tie game in the bottom of the ninth. This is baseball in 2023.
So essentially what you see there is Cal Conley for the Braves sits there. So just so we all know, you have 15 seconds, okay? 15 seconds for the pitcher to throw. At 8 seconds, the batter is supposed to be sitting there in the box, ready for the pitch to be thrown, or at least addressing the pitcher. So that gives the pitcher, obviously, 8 seconds and down to be able to, start the procedure of throwing the baseball. Conley thought that the pitcher was being called for his penalty. So, in a 3-2 count, what that would have done, called a ball. He would have taken his base because it's a 3-2 count. Since the bases were loaded, a runner would have scored, and game over, because the Braves now win on a, walk-off, lack of a better word, walk-off score. So it actually was the exact reverse. And that's something that is going to be very interesting as the year progresses. I don't know as spring training, keeps on matriculating as people get more accustomed to the rules, whether this will really become an issue. But people were, of course, up in arms. This doesn't bother me because it's not some huge ordeal. But it does just go to show that there's going to be an adjustment period here. I think by the end, especially midsummer, once you're in the dog days of summer, June, July, that early September window, August window, I think a lot of these things will be sorted out. But it does give you that mental image of what if you're sitting here in the World Series. Let's just give it this exact same scenario. You're 3-2, bases loaded. It's game what? It's a 7-game series. So let's say it's game 4. It's the start of a sweep, or even game 7. Make it the magnitude you prefer. But let's say it's just game 7 or game 4 of the World Series. The winner of this game is going to win the World Series. So just presume in this instance, it's the Braves trying to go win it. Then you get this going now. In the World Series, it would go into extra time or extra innings. But still, let's just say this is how a procedure goes. Or if you're on the reverse team, let's say it gets called for the Braves where, they get the ball and because due to the pitch count and the winning run to win the World Series walks in. And if you're on the opposing side, that's got to just make you mad. It's got to just, get you livid a little bit just due to the circumstances of the rules. That's the rules these days. I don't know if this is something that'll affect instances like that because, again, they're going to have a lot more practice, get a lot more accustomed to this as time goes on. But it's just one of those little tweaks where what if there's does weather have anything to do with it? Someone brought up a instance where the Phillies were in, essentially a downpour. Baseball, if it's a downpour too bad, they're going to put you in the dugouts, right? So I don't foresee that being a huge issue, but it just goes to show that it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. It's a wild and crazy world in spring, and on the wild and crazy, and we're just going to see how people adjust. I think it's going to be fine at the end of the day, but it was a little bit of a frantic way to start the first day of spring training against two premier ball clubs. Both, especially the Braves, more than likely will have a shot to make a deep playoff run, if not make the World Series. So it's going to be wild. I hope that in the first early months, maybe some of these issues keep, just rearing their ugly head so we can have controversy. Obviously, you don't want things to be too controversial because then people become conspiratorial, but it will be funny to see like a countdown clock, how you see in the NBA or, college, sometimes even basketball, if they have replays. Most of them don't. But where it's a shot clock violation, and sometimes you see whether it be at the end of the game, end of a possession, where they're just trying to see where the hand was. It'll be interesting to see if there's any reviews like that, where was the batter actually ready? Was it the ball out of the pitcher's hands? Maybe they'll give him a little bit of, for the pitchers, I could see him giving a little more of a grace period from that 1-0 time frame. Not too much, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. But that 8-second window might be interesting for a little while. But these guys are pros. They're going to adjust. They have plenty of time to do it. I don't foresee this becoming a true blue issue, but it did cause a little bit of a stir first weekend of spring training. I will say on that same note, it's starting to really come down, I should say shave down some of these times. Don't have a stat to pull up. I'm bringing this up just off the top of my head because I believe it was a tweet or an article I read where the average spring training game was somewhere between 3 hours and 2 minutes. That got shaved down a whole 30 minutes to about 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, somewhere in between that window. If that is what we can expect from baseball, and if you were just watching the pace of play, it was going now. That is something I did enjoy. Having sort of the speed of the game just amped up a little bit, all for it. All for it. And hopefully, this was a 6-6 game. Hopefully that does translate into a little bit more runs where pitchers just may not have the opportunity to communicate with their catchers on where exactly to spot the ball. Maybe it pressures them just a little bit to place a ball in a spot that they weren't exactly wanting to place it. So I'm all for the more runs. If you can give me a 6-6 game on average in the MLB, I mean, it might be skyrocketing back up to one of the better sports in the country. Not that it hasn't, but it's become a little more regional, right? It's harder to watch the big name teams go at it. But speaking of some big name teams, the Orioles and Pirates also found themselves in an interesting predicament when the umps decided at the bottom of the ninth to apparently just walk off the field in the middle of a game, leaving the two teams who wanted to complete the game to sort of just fend for themselves. So let's see here where the umpires just decide, hey, we're kind of done with this. So you guys have at it. We'll see you next time. Here we go. Let's play this.
The umpires seem satisfied with ending the game, and the Orioles have.
So as you can see here where the tweet says, oh my God, the Pirates and Orioles wanted to play the bottom of the ninth despite the Pirates leading 7-4 at home. But the umpires just left at the top of the inning thinking that the game was over. So now they're playing without him. And here you'll see they are playing without him.
Well, Freddie Gomez, who is scheduled to pitch today, they would like him to pitch. Usually what that is an agreement with the managers. They consult the umpires, and they have dinner reservations. About 150 years ago. Yeah, they used to do it this way. What do you think?
No.
All right. All right, Neil, what do you think here?
There's just no ump.
No.
All right.
Now, that said, it is something that was a little more in spring training. If the Pirates are up, because clearly, as you can see, it was bottom of the ninth. Pirates are the home team, so they're up to bat. In spring training, if it's a situation like that where the game is essentially over, right? There's no way for them to. In the real world, I guess they would just call the game there, right? I mean, now that I'm thinking about it off the top of my head, this is why I need Reed Carter because he's more baseball savvy than me. But I think in the real world or a real regular season game, if this were to happen, I think they would just call the game, right? I mean, just from my recollection, if you're up 7-4, Orioles come up top half of the ninth, don't get any runs, game is over, right? So in this instance, it was funny that they wanted to keep playing. I'm assuming they wanted to keep some of their guys pitching, give some of those guys who don't get too much of a workout in the regular season, probably won't be on the starting roster, give them a chance to just, keep working out. They kept the game going. I don't know how much further they went into it, but it looks like they did probably. I'm hoping they finished the bottom half of that inning. That would just be awesome. If you're a fan, you get a little extra baseball before you get to go. But baseball, as I was saying, is hopefully as the rules changes come along, a little bit of scoring comes with it. Some reduction in time comes with it. The pace of play gets a little bit better. And we'll see some more eyeballs. But speaking of leagues that aren't getting the eyeballs that they really want, LIV Golf. They had their opening event this weekend. I don't know exactly where it was, but I know that the CW, because you know what? LIV Golf to me, I'm PGA all day. LIV Golf is contentious to me. I enjoy the fact that it's there for competition, so it gets the PGA Tour to pay their golfers a little bit more. But I don't, everything about the LIV Tour is just a little bit to me. Don't like the team aspect. Don't like that they have them wear shorts. Don't like all the music going on. Again, I'm a curmudgeon. I'm a 90-year-old man stuck in a 30-year-old's body. I like tradition. I'm all for people getting paid. I'm all for potentially taking away some of the ridiculous rules. But LIV Golf's format sucks. I will always say it, and it's showing because LIV Golf, let me just share this with you. LIV Golf, and their TV contract is on the CW. LIV Golf had an average viewership or a total viewership of 300,000 people this weekend. It got beat out by programs even on the CW. I've never watched the CW besides like Saturday morning cartoons. I think Recess was on it back in the day. But here we go. LIV Golf, I just want to show this stat. LIV Golf's season debut on the CW averaged what Nielsen would call a 0.18 rating, less than 300,000 viewers. On that same channel, World's Funniest Animals and a rerun of Master of Illusions, two shows I didn't even know existed, outdrew Live Golf. That to me is so rich. So you're telling me Magic and Animals, cat videos, constant cat videos beat out what the Live Golf was able to produce. This gentleman right here is Charles Howell, who I forgot was even a golfer. He apparently, with whatever the hell their team name is, he apparently won it this weekend. They were going up against the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour had the Honda Classic this weekend, which I also, barely watched. That got 2 million views. That is one of their smaller tournaments of the year. The Honda Classic gets, I believe, it was like 8.4 million was the purse size. And so, what we're going to talk about here in a second, the Arnold Palmer Invitational had 20 million, has a $20 million purse. The Waste Management, which we talked about a little bit ago, probably a couple of weeks ago, that has 20 million. So, and that's not even as big as I believe this Live Golf tournament was. It shows that I think the Live Golf experience, it may not have a lot of life left in it. It is limping along at the moment. There's lawsuits back and forth. I think a lot of people who are in the golfing world don't truly care for it, or they're agnostic to it and aren't going to go hunting for it. I haven't seen how a team format plays in golf. I've literally never watched a second of Live, but I just can't see it being too intriguing. I love the match play. I think it's match play, right? I just love the format that golf currently uses. And as we can see here, I'm just trying to see what golf's format is, because I now don't want to be wrong. Yeah, 72-hole format, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The competition played. They don't even say it like I wanted to. It's not match play, because I know that's not how it goes. That's what the Dell Classic is. That's a match play event. I'm just going to call it tournament style. No idea. Someone correct me in the comments. But as you can see here, though, Live Golf Season 2 debuted. Oh, my God, not even 300,000. 291,000. PGA Tour Honda Classic had 2 million. That's just awful. That's god-awful. And so I know some of you guys may not be huge PGA Tour guys like myself and Mr. Carter are, but that is a piss-poor showing. I mean, 219,000. You could get more people to go to 2 college football games. Let's say 3 to make it fine. That's 3 college football games, 3 games in the SEC, just people in the stadium watching. And if you have 3 stadiums in the SEC, you're probably maybe getting more. So depending on which stadiums you choose and if they're fully packed, not good. Not good at the moment. Just to give you something, a dying sport like the Daytona 500, okay? Boogity, 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 let's go racing. The Daytona 500, which I watch, by the way. That's that and the Indy, only 2 races I watch from a NASCAR. Really only true blue races I watch of really any motorsport. Not against cars or anything. I just don't find it the most entertaining. That had 8.7 million people watching it. That was obviously a one-day event, but that just means Live had 3 extra days. I think Live is actually only 2 days. That means Live had a whole extra day, so much more time to draw in people. So, like, if you're thinking about, just a window for light viewers to come through, the Daytona had a little bitty window, where the Live Golf had a massive window, still couldn't get people to come in to watch it. Not good. Greg the Shark Norman better be, hunting in the sea, or he might become Nomad Norman here in a little bit for the abject failure. And I'm all here for it, baby. Let that Zeppelin burn up, blow up in the sky, and come crashing down. The Saudis, to me, thanks for the oil. Thank you for, I guess being a horrible dictatorship that makes me think that, I actually live it pretty well. If you're a woman, sure as hell wouldn't be supporting Live. So, hey, only thing I'll thank you for is getting the PGA golfers the money they deserve. So that's something I can give you. So otherwise, transitioning, not really transitioning. Let's stick in golf, because the Arnold Palmer Invitational is happening this weekend. The PGA is making its Florida swing, the Gator crawl, if you will. Honda Classic just finished up. We have Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Club in Orlando. Then they're going to go to the Players next weekend, which I'm pumped about. That's a TPC Sawgrass, hole 17, par 3 in the water. Always a good time. You have this one. It's a bigger tournament. The next two are pretty big. The Players Championship has a $25 million purse. Arnie Palmer Invitational has a $20 million purse. That's about $3 million going to the winner, 3.4-ish. That is going to be a good one. That means now that we're at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, we're 6 weeks away-ish from the Masters. Glorious Augusta, Georgia. Give me that. Georgia. Something. That's Ray Charles' song. It's a good one. Can't wait for that. You got to love Augusta. It's a magical moment. Anytime Augusta's going, I'm going to be watching that from sun up, sundown, as many hours they can give me to view it. As big as apertures they're going to let me have, I'm watching. Love the majors. That one especially is by far and away the best. Let's pivot back to the Arnie Palmer Invitational. This one is obviously in memory of the king himself, Arnie Palmer, one of the greatest golfers of all time. Used to obviously host this when he was alive. Rest in peace, Arnie. But this should be a good one. This is now, because the Honda Classic, what makes that even worse, that the Honda Classic outdrew LIV, is they didn't really have all the big golfers in that tournament. This one here, who won that? Let's see who won. I don't even know who won the Honda Classic. Chris Kirk, fun stat. Now that I'm seeing that, he apparently has only made roughly, I think it was $650,000. I think it was less than that in all his previous starts on the PGA and Korn Ferry Tour. This win that he got, I think it was $1 million. It says here it was $1.5 million. So I don't know if they were taking that after tax. Irregardless, how sweet would that be? You barely are making $600,000. I think he's only been on tour for 2-3 years relative to the Korn Ferry and PGA. And then in one tournament, life-changing money, $1 million, 7 figures. Here you go, son. Now go pay it to Uncle Sam since it's tax season. So hopefully he can push that off for one more year. I'm not an accountant, but hopefully someone is helping that man. Arnold Palmer, though, you're going to get a lot more big names. You got Rahm, Scheffler, Spieth, Scotty, Rory, Hovland, Homa, and more. So you basically, the only one that's not, Titanic name that isn't a LIV golfer that's not going to be there is Tiger Woods. I'm pretty sure he will probably be at the Players. Then after you have the Players, you have Valspar, Corrales, Valero. I'm assuming no for Woods there on those 3. And then he'll be there for the Masters. I hope Tiger makes it to the Players. Again, for him and just me being concerned for that man and his longevity, I'm hoping it's mainly, just health that would allow him to be there. If he's not able to do it physically, rest up, get to a major. And if you can't even do the major, don't do it. But big stuff going on in the golf world. Excited for it. Going to be here for it. I'm really pumped for the next few weeks. We got, obviously, Arnie, Players, a handful of weeks. Valspar, all those are good. But then we got the Masters coming up. Now, let's redirect back to baseball. Let's go to somebody who is a total stud in the baseball world. This guy, can't think of his name because it's very hard. I'm going to show this to you. You'll see it here in a second. Let me share this. This was shared by Brandon Walker, a Barstool personality. Unnecessary Roughness, that's his podcast. Go check it out. It was fine. If you like Josh Pate, he has a good episode with Josh Pate on there talking football. Many people call Walker a casual. I don't know. I myself am sometimes a casual in the football world, really sports world generally, but I love to partake in what I can. But this guy is crazy. So as you can see, I don't know what this name is. I'm going to call it Harangelo. Before, hopefully they say it here. I'm going to say this name is Harangelo Syngente. No idea. But watch this kid. As you can see from this description, this kid is a Mississippi State freshman pitcher who's ambidextrous, throws 95 miles an hour righty and 91 miles an hour lefty. I'm a left-handed person by nature, so I can throw pretty well, and semi-accurate, not nearly to this guy's standard, with a baseball, both left-handed and right-handed, same with a football. But no way, one, you could steroid me up. There's no way in heck. Give me a few years to practice. No way in heck I'm even touching 90 miles an hour. Let's say I could top out at 70 with my left arm. No way. I would give myself maybe 50 with the right. If I'm getting up to like 55, it's starting to get wild, cuz. But let's see. Let's see what this dude's got. I truly, like Walker says, this is crazy, and I have no other comments. So let's watch this kid work. It's a minute and a half-ish. I'm going to see if I can't speed it up a little bit. I want to see if the shows
Florida. This is where he pitched last year. And Charlie, ambidextrous pitcher. He threw just right-handed. He's over at first. Runner going, 2-2 pitch, and there's strike 3 called on the outside
on the
corner.
left hand.
All right, you got to add one letter to it. 3-2. Swing and a miss.
Wow.
And a strikeout.
Accurate.
Device on his left wrist as well. 2-2. There's strike 3.
Unbelievable.
And back-to-back strikeouts for Durangelo on Friday. Come back left-handed on Saturday. 2-2 pitch. Line drive and snagged in.
Wow. That's amazing. I've truly never seen anything like that before in my life. Nothing like it. I mean, in theory, this would probably never happen, but you can have that guy go back-to-back days, no rest, because you're just switching your shoulders and your elbows that are getting punishment. He could go lefty one day, righty the next. I think this will come up. This would be left, this would be right, but in my vantage point, this is left, this is right. So if you've been saying, like, what the fuck's he doing? This is really my left hand, people. You may see it as my right. Speaking of people who are boxing orthodox, what I alluded to last week, Thursday, we had a fight of the century. Not really. These aren't the best boxers in the world, but it was an entertaining fight. You had Jake Paul taking his first L against Tommy Fury of Fury fame, because his brother Tyson is maybe he's not the best heavyweight of all time, probably not, but he's at least in the top 10. And in my opinion, I'd probably put him top 5. He is unbelievable, especially for the lack of shape he's in. Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King. I really hope him and Francis Ngannou truly come to blows, because though Ngannou is not a boxer per se, that dude's got power, the likes of which, I mean, maybe Deontay Wilder is the only guy that can sort of match him when it comes to power. But I'm pretty sure Francis Ngannou, if I'm not mistaken, he has the world's punching record, where I think it's just, pounds per square inch, the force he can generate on his punch. There's a funny jackass clip where I think it's Dave English gets a shot in the nuts. He did have a couple on, thank God, but a shot in the nuts from Ngannou. It's like, that was not a smart idea. But Dave English is an idiot. But here we go. Entertaining fight. Nothing overly impressive to speak home about. Jake Paul, truly, I thought Tommy Fury, who's just obviously a pro boxer, more polished. It did show when you look at the highlights of this fight, came across evidently. But you can tell that Tommy Fury, he's a young guy. I'm not quite sure. Let me see if I can see Tommy Fury's age. But you can tell that Tommy Fury isn't also the greatest boxer. Yeah, Tommy Fury is 23, so he's pretty young in his boxing debut or his boxing career. So he's got plenty of time to grow. He's got at least another decade to keep becoming better. Now he's apparently 9-0. I don't know if they officially sanctioned this, but Jake Paul's 26. He's another young guy. If he really wants to take boxing seriously, he could probably become pretty solid himself. You could tell that there's just some things he's definitely got to work on if he wants to even get to Tommy Fury's level. I think he was close, because as you can tell by the score, it was a split decision, wasn't a knockout. It was, I believe 75-74. One judge scored it for Paul. Then it was 76-73 for Fury, 76-73 for Fury. I believe each boxer got deducted a point, so it was sort of a wash into why it was 76-73. But if you look at the highlights round by round, it was only, I think they were 3-minute rounds, 8 rounds. Nothing overly impressive there, but it was a fun fight. I tried to do as much illegal streaming of it as I could. Shame on me. It was kind of hard. I didn't trust some of the sites, so I was sort of perusing good old YouTube to see if anyone was illegally putting it in the corner of a video or something like that. There were a couple of streams that were close. There was one that had the best vantage point that never got taken down, but it was god-awful quality. God-awful. As choppy as anything, and it was way behind the pace. But that was another thing. And what I'm now just curious of, nothing's been mentioned, but Jake Paul, I wonder if he's about to put his money where his mouth was, because he did say double or nothing to Tommy Fury, saying that, hey, if you win this, I will give you whatever I'm paying you. Let's say it's $1 million. I'll double it, make it $2 million. I wonder if he's actually going to do that. Jake Paul has probably got plenty of money. Him and his brother Logan are doing very well for themselves, so he probably could afford to do it. It makes you wonder why he's even boxing anyway, or at least to the level that he's trying to get to. I guess you can't make big boy money boxing, so maybe that's why. But it goes to show that as Jake Paul, who was fighting a lot of people who were past their prime, not even pure boxers or guys that were much smaller than him, a la Floyd Mayweather, who took that fight easy peasy, lemon squeezy, give me my money, a milli peasy. He probably was just like, hey, I'll take this. This is easy money for me. And he's probably in his weight class the best boxer of all time. So that happened this weekend. And another thing that happened in the sports world, a little bit of controversy before we step out to U.S. and world news and a little bit of culture. Cap it off with the culture, baby. We had Dan Snyder, who is selling the Redskins, or at least fielding options, coming out with a story that apparently, I believe this is back in 2016. He apparently took out a $55 million loan against the Redskins without telling his minority owners, 3 billionaires who own 40% of the shares of the Redskins. So I want to bring this up real quick just so we can all see it and just really, suck in all this sneaky snake stuff that Snyder does on behalf of I think I called them the Redskins. I will continually call them the Redskins, but they're technically the Commanders. They're the Washington Commanders. Let's share this real quick. I want to show this video if it's not too much to ask. Let's see how this goes. I'm not going to have us watch all 33 minutes, 30 minutes of it. But let's see. As you can tell here, how a disputed $55 million loans is now involving the feds into a probe of the Commanders. I don't know. Let's just see. It's a little sketch.
A secret $55 million loan has become a primary focus of federal investigators examining financial misconduct by Dan Snyder and his Washington Commanders football team, sources tell ESPN.
1932.
According to documents obtained by ESPN, Snyder took out the $55 million credit line at Bank of America in December 2018 without the knowledge of his 3 minority partners.
Slimy.
Bylaws say all
Slimy.
new debt has to be approved by the board, but the partners allege no vote was ever taken. The 3 billionaire partners, Dwight Scharr, Fred Smith, and Robert Rothman, discovered the secret loan in a footnote of a financial report 16 months after the credit line had been granted. The partners investigated the team's finances and claimed Snyder had used the team as his personal piggy bank, including charging the team $3 million in
Ponzi scheme
to put its logo on his personal aircraft for 1 year. The partners then
that's some Trump stuff right there, boy.
NFL arbitration petition in which they sought an investigation of the $55 million credit.
Just so I don't get in trouble with the ESPN, what inevitably happened is this was in 2018. It was found. They come out a little bit later, gets arbitrated. Snyder buys these cats out for, I think, all 3 together. It was like roughly $800 million. He's now trying to sell the team for what could land him and net him $8 $7 billion. So who's on the short end of that stick? But it's now led to the FBI looking into it, some probes going in. I think Dan Snyder, at least amongst the NFL community, is by far and away the most hated owner in the league. Just go look at the Commanders Stadium now. It is abysmal. FedEx Field is disgusting. The guy, I think, has probably been doing a little bit of shady stuff when it comes to his ownership of the Redskins. It's not Ponzi scheme that I'm thinking of. Oh my gosh. Money manipulation. Oh my Lord. It's like when you're, a front, you own a car wash, but you're a drug dealer and you're trying to wash your money through it. There's a name, but while I'm on the video, I can't think of it. It's just sketchy though. So the billionaires getting taken to the back end of the woodshed, getting, porked. Not good. So it's leading to, there's something on here. Oh, Bank of America gave a loan. My bank, BOA. I don't know what that $55 million was for. So what I can see is there's really nothing for it. There's probably something sketchy. Like they said, he was probably using it for nefarious funds. I think it's embezzling. I think you're embezzling money out of it when you're doing the stuff that he's trying to do. So maybe that's what they're probing for, trying to see if he's embezzling money out of the Redskins for his own personal finances. Not quite sure what that gentleman even does, Snyder, but, he made enough money to where he can own a football team, so he's doing something for himself that's right. So let's see here. Let's move on. Moving on. Want to bring up stuff that's happening in the US of A. The big thing that's happening today is Biden's student debt forgiveness program is meeting resistance in the Supreme Court. They're now hearing it, an appeals court. I believe it was Missouri and a couple other lawsuits that are happening to where they're saying that Biden's student forgiveness package is unconstitutional and that basically the rationale for it, which was the HEROES Act, which gives the Secretary of Education the ability to assist students when it comes to emergencies such as military conflicts, national emergencies, yada, yada, yada. I don't think the intent of that law was to then wipe away. I believe it's, let me see here. I'm going to say $500 billion, but I'm pretty sure it's 430 billion. The total sum of the student loan debt in the country is 1.6 trillion. Gosh, that's a lot of money, man. Thankfully, I went to college. Thankfully, I don't got any debt, boy. I came out scot-free. Look at me. Still got no money because that's the world I be. Yeah, where is this here? I know I got it. I know. Yeah, $430 billion is on the Treasury's books that would be repaid under this bill. To give a little overview, kind of want to share it here just so we all can see what this would do. Where's the breakdown? Where is the breakdown? What to know about the case? Here we go. Here we go. So let me share this with the peeps out there so you can get a little bit more of an info on what is going on here. So the basics here. To be eligible, you obviously have to be it's $10,000 or $20,000 you could potentially get. $20,000 if you got Pell Grants back in the day is sort of where the cap is. So as you can see here, this is the big stuff. And this sort of goes over it. Borrowers with the federal student loan debt are eligible for up to $10,000 in relief if they earn less than $125,000. Just want to stop right there. That is a steep. If you're earning $125,000, that's almost double what I make currently. And I can afford to pay out. I think your average student debt payment, if it's like $30,000 over those 4 years, of course it can get higher, especially if you're in a graduate degree. But that's what this is roping in. This is roping in people who are like getting their masters and becoming teachers and not making that much a year, or at least as much as I am potentially. And I'm not making that much. This is basically saying $125,000. So let's just say you're doubling it, right? It's $60,000 you took out whatever. And the example I saw, it was essentially $350 a month rounded up for a $30,000 loan over the course of 4 years. If you double that, triple that, I'm assuming it goes at scale that way too. That's including your interest, paying off some of your principal. $125,000, you can easily do that with just a little bit of financial smarts. Clearly, if you're living in San Francisco, LA, New York, or Chicago, some major metropolitan city where it's very expensive to live, it's a little bit tougher. But listen, I live in Orlando, Florida. I live in a pretty big metropolitan area. And if I was making $125,000 and I had, let's just say, a $600 a month student loan, I could easily afford that with renting from a very nice spot and even owning a home. If I had that much money, I would own a home. So irregardless, before I spew out what my thoughts are on this, you're eligible for up to $10,000 in relief if you earn less than $125,000 a year that are below, or under $250,000 a year for couples. That's so many people. The income limit applies to the gross adjusted income from 2021 and 2020. So that's before all these pay bumps people probably got the past couple of years. People who received Pell Grants in college would also be eligible for up to $20,000 in forgiveness. And 6 in 10 borrowers with any federal loans received Pell Grants. So this is now basically saying 60% of people would be eligible for the 20 if they obviously meet the criteria of $120,000 single, $250,000 amongst a couple. And then according to the White House and the Pell Grant recipient, graduates hold up to $4,500 more in debt than other graduates, according to a 2020 analysis. So essentially, this, to me, as you can tell, is meeting some resistance in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, who is now a conservative bent, clearly, for what my opinions are, if you haven't come to the conclusion of what I think about this as of yet, I think this is BS. I think Mr. Carter did not go to college. If Mr. Carter didn't go to college, why should he and his tax dollars be paying off people who did go to college and, by the statistics, are going to be potentially making more throughout their life than he ever will? God willing, this thing takes off, and Always On is always on the case, and then we can get Mr. Carter rich. But needless to say about that hasn't happened yet. So the earning potential of someone in college has more than Mr. Carter, our guinea pig for this example. Sorry, Reed. So why should he, through his tax dollars, have to pay and subsidize people who knew what they were getting into? If you sign a debt, even at 18, you know that you're going to have to pay that back. It clearly was meeting some resistance in the Supreme Court, irregardless of the president's power to do this, which I think is so off the charts ridiculous to think that the president of the United States can at just nauseum, because of the gauze of a national emergency, which he is now ending this same year as he's trying to pass this. Just the hypocrisy and the irony is ridiculous. The fact that it's just so nonchalant, you can add $500 billion to the debt just without any approval of Congress, which is and should be the body that holds the purse strings, because it's directly accountable, more so than the presidency even, to the people. The fact that there's no consensus on this, and they were even able to, I think it's a very liberal reading of this HEROES Act, and they're taking one word and just extrapolating literally billions of dollars out of one word. It's truly absurd, in my opinion, absurd. If we want to have student loan debt forgived, we can have that debate, but it needs to be held in Congress, and Congress needs to pass the laws. And if you don't like it, well, there's a reason Congress is gridlocked, because if there's not a consensus, as there's clearly not for this, shouldn't be there. Doesn't mean on its face, student loans for certain people, I wouldn't be willing to forgive if we come to a compromise. I'm all for some sort of compromise, right? But you're telling me someone who's going to get their doctorate is going to potentially be eligible for this a couple of years out? No, go F yourself, man. No. Some dude who's becoming a pediatrician, maybe not even making $125,000 a year, him or her, no. So clearly, you have a couple of the justices, Samuel Alito, who's probably besides the black gentleman. Why can't I think of his name? Clarence Thomas, who's probably those two are neck and neck for probably the most true blue conservatives on the court. He said this: $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. It doesn't really make a difference to Congress and doesn't seem very sensible to me, where he's basically saying that should make a difference to Congress. This should be something at the hand of Congress, at Congress's feet to sign off on, which clearly they did not. Certain ones wanted to, and of course, liberals on the bench. It goes to show. I think there's a little more honesty coming from the conservative side of the bench here, where they're actually reading the law itself and trying to extrapolate what that truly means. Where the liberal side of the bench is, here's what we want done. Let's fit the law to get what we want done, which is not how it's supposed to be done, at least in my eyes. And you can see this by Sotomayor and Alana Kagan here later on that I'm going to quote. But Justice Neil Gorsuch asked whether let me bring this up so you guys can read along. This is what Justice Gorsuch said to one of the, I'm going to say plaintiffs, but I'm not quite sure. Am I sharing the right thing here? Let's look. Yes. Okay, so here we go. No, I lost it. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, no, here we go. Neil Gorsuch. I think besides Kavanaugh, actually, I think her name's KGB, Ketanji Brown Jackson, KBJ, whatever. Besides her, he's basically the third newest one on the court. He asked the Education Secretary Michael Cardona, who was outside of his sphere of competence and putting forth a regulation with such an extensive economic impact. Yeah, this is a good question here. He goes, I understand the secretary has considerable expertise when it comes to educational affairs, but in terms of macroeconomic policy, do we really assume every cabinet member or every cabinet secretary, learned as they are, has this kind of knowledge? And I believe he goes on to say, waving the beagle, he goes, application of student loan assistance program so that borrowers officially can cancel the debt. That is not what I wanted. He said something a little more brilliant than that. Whatever. But as you can see, so basically he's saying, do you as a, Secretary for Education, do you really have the knowledge of what the effects of just $500 billion in non-government or non-congressionally approved spending will have on the economy, especially as we're trying to fight inflation? You think you know what that means? And here's where I say, I believe it's Kagan here who says this. Congress doesn't get much clearer than that. Justice Alana Kagan said, we do it. Nope. Where's Sotomayor? Sotomayor. She says it here. She's the one that's a little more blatant. And to be honest, she's one of the more partisans. Here's Sotomayor. She said millions of students would benefit from the program, adding, many of them don't have assets sufficient to bail them out of after the pandemic. Okay, neither here nor there. And then she also said, and what you're now saying is now we're going to give judges the right to decide how much money and aid to give them. No, what we're saying, Sotomayor, is that we are going to have Congress, the person who should be judging this, the right to say what these students should be giving, not the president of the United States, who does not have this power. This is something that we all need to come to grips with in this world, is that the president is not a king. The president does not have this power. The president needs to be subdued and knocked off a pedestal by Congress, at least by my likes, because Congress is supreme. It's the first branch of the government, then the executive, then the judiciary. If not, the founders wouldn't go 1, 2, and 3 when they set up the Constitution. They would have gone 1A, 1B, 1C if they wanted all this co-equal branch nonsense, which is a fallacy. We have one branch that's supreme. It is Congress, at least in my eyes, and then those bodies are subservient, the presidency and the judiciary. Why? Because if you look at the checks and balances of our system, the Congress can checkmate the presidency by impeaching them, and it can also do the same for justices. It can also not approve the justices that a president puts forward, which we saw with, who was it, Merrick Garland, right, under the Obama administration. They didn't approve him. The Republicans did because they knew they had a good chance in 2016. Merrick Garland doesn't get approved. We then get Gorsuch in his stead. Irregardless. It's frustrating to see this because you would think just put aside your actual views on the situation. I'm clearly not for student loan repayment or student debt forgiveness. I think you took out a loan, you pay that loan back. We shouldn't have the government in this business in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. The law is not construed in such a way that the president should be able to have the power to just add on a $500 billion in debt and money we don't have to give people who are statistically going to make more than their non-college educated counterparts a subsidy. Just plain and simple. If you can't make it financially due to the pandemic, well, you got 3 stimulus checks. Figure it out. Unemployment is at historic lows. Figure it out. This is on you, buddy. The government, in my opinion, is not here to pick you up from all your ills, pat you on the back, wipe your bottom, get the crap off your face. No. At a certain point, take personal accountability for your foibles. I don't blame the government for me being fat. I got to lose weight. This is my own problem. It's my problem to solve. It's not for the government to give me a big fat check so I can get some surgery or hire a personal trainer to not be so fat. So that's where I come down on it. Just be personally responsible for yourself. That's probably one of these things that's going wrong in this country. Speaking of being personally responsible, maybe irresponsible in this case, moving on from the contentious student debt forgiveness. If you disagree with me, let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear some of your arguments because I think they will be ridiculous. And try, just if you're going to comment below, try and justify it for why a high school educated, or even a dropout who started their own business during the pandemic or maybe before, has outstanding loans for that business, shouldn't be getting it paid off. If you rented a truck, whatever, to start some lawn care business, that's what Gorsuch was saying. I couldn't necessarily find it here because it's hard to highlight these things. But that's what Gorsuch sort of was alluding to. If you started a business and now your business is going to have to subsidize, you're not educated, your business is now going to have to subsidize people who are educated and going to make more than you, statistically speaking. Utter nonsense. If you were to construe this in any other way besides just, the kind warm-heartedness we have towards education, nobody would buy this. That's why people don't buy it for people trying to start their own business, be entrepreneurs, and not be a warden of the state's handed out loans. Irregardless, gets me a little riled up, gets me a little hot under the britches there. Let's move on to a study that was just released by the New York Times here that said a 0-calorie sweetener, I think it's called erythritol. Let's see how we pronounce this here. I'm going to copy this. Let's say, and then pronunciation. I don't think you're going to hear this, but I'm going to have a go. Erythritol. So I'm going to call it erythritol. And this 0-calorie sweetener, let me bring it up so you guys can see the news here. This is a 0-calorie sweetener that's essentially a sugar substitute. If I had to have you guess what potential product this came for, where do you think? What do you think was what enzymes were put in and what fermentation process was happening from a certain type of agricultural product that's big here in the United States that potentially, or that is the maker of erythritol? I'll give you 1 second. Corn. What a shocker that it's a corn substitute, because all these subsidies we give corn, you got to do something with it. Ethanol ain't paying the bills. So that being said, new studies suggest possible link between sugar substitute and heart issues. I believe here in the article, I think it's in the early parts. Basically, they had a 4,000-person study, and it was saying that this sugar substitute was more likely to have, the subjects who did this were more likely to have a heart attack or stroke. Researchers also found that when they fed mice erythritol, it promoted blood clotting. This also appeared to be induced blood clotting in humans in plasma as well. So obviously, a stroke is literally a blood clot coming into your brain, stroking you out. Same goes for a heart attack. More times than not, is a clot being pumped into your brain, it freaking out. I think you can have heart attacks other ways. I am not a doctor. I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I may not be a pro. But I know that that's a factor in it. And obviously, when people throw clots, it can be very deadly for them. But when it comes to this, I think it was the Journal of Nature Medicine it's just the Journal of Nature Medicine. So we have to qualify it here. One, who funded the study? Two, how many studies say that it's good for you, not good for you, indecisive? Probably they're out there. They can be found. This to me reminds me of how butter's bad for you. So let's make margarine. Well, margarine's actually worse for you than butter is because butter's a natural fat. Oh, eggs are bad for you for the cholesterol, but the certain cholesterol in the eggs is good. People have to justify why they're doing some of the research sometimes so they can make sure they get the money. And it leads to all these, convoluted, complicated examinations of food and whatnot out there that aren't necessarily all that helpful, not that great. And the world's complex. Let's give these researchers a break. They had parameters they were trying to look for. We have no idea, because I haven't read the study verbatim. We don't exactly know. Oh my God, am I sweating? That's how heated up I got from that student loan debate. I got a glisten. I got a little bit of a glare here. Irregardless, these, we'll probably see in 2 weeks from now that erythritol is actually very good for brain, cognition, and it makes your blood flow that much more fluid. So who knows, man? Who knows? It was just an interesting study that came out. It always cracks me up when corn is used for some sort of thing because we subsidize corn through the hilt here, for good and for ill. And when I saw this, it just gave me a little bit of a chuckle. But things that aren't giving me a chuckle these days is how the UN. Oh, I just got out of it. The UN has confirmed that it, and this is the UN Atomic Agency here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it all positioned so I can read it. The UN Atomic Agency said the United Nations Atomic Agency confirmed Tuesday that inspectors had found traces of near nuclear weapons grade uranium in Iran's underground Fordo facility. They're clearly not supposed to get that. It said uranium will still be enriching to less than the dangerous level of 60. So just so people need to know, I don't know the whole enriching process of uranium. I think you just, in the way I understand it, and this is probably dead wrong, so take this with the grain of salt, not with a grain of erythium, because you might die. But take this with a grain of salt, that I'm pretty sure you're basically just making it pure, like how you distill a alcohol to essentially make it the purest form of itself. I'm assuming that's what you're doing here with uranium when you enrich it, is that, you get it to a certain point, then the bombs get bigger, better, badder. What they say is that it's 90% enrichment of uranium that you need to have nuclear weapons grade uranium for. What? Nuclear weapons. They found traces that were 84% in an inspection that was done in January 22nd of 2023. That is no good. No dice. No das, I think. No das. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds so good. To me, it just leads to a lot of problems because, as we know, in the grander scheme of the world, it seems like Russia, Iran, and China are sort of coming together, coagulating, if we're talking about clotting, coagulation, and just becoming more partners within oneself. There was actually another just quick side tangent. There was an article today, maybe yesterday, I don't know, that came out saying that Russia is using more yuan, which is the Chinese currency, to trade in. For many of you who may not know, a lot of international trades are done in dollars, which is considered the U.S. dollars, the world's reserve currency. Gives us a lot of advantages, lets us run $30 trillion debts with no real impact on our economy. I don't think it's going to become some macro thing that, if Russia starts doing it, everybody else is going to start doing it. I think it's just due to the fact that the West and Europe has sanctioned a lot of their banks from doing business with the West, so it makes it harder for them to have cash reserves to be able to trade in dollars. So the yuan is becoming an alternative. Irregardless, back to Iran, back to something that's a little not necessarily more important, because Russia and China are very important in our lives, but Iran has also become an even bigger thorn in our side. And it could just, if they keep doing things like this, it could just widen the scope of geopolitical problems happening in the world. Because what this makes me think of is, one, Europe is now getting a little bit tougher in the tooth, right? They're getting a little bit more bullish when it comes to, making sure people are sticking to what they say. So the JCPOA, which is what this stuff is coming off of, which is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which the Obama administration put into place with Iran, getting them like a 15-year window to essentially, enrich your stuff and you advance your nuclear facilities slowly but surely for 15 years. And at the end of the 15 years, we essentially let them get a bomb. How smart that is, I don't know. Because in the meantime, it got rid of some sanctions, shored up what is, I think, unmistakably an evil regime. Irregardless, there's a lot of evil regimes in the Middle East, unfortunately. Some of them are our buddies, some are not. Iran clearly is not, and I think we need to keep it that way. Unless they become a republic again, then that would be great. But what makes me fearful when you hear news like this is, what does Israel do in the region? I think Europe, after realizing that, hey, appeasement, you would think they would have learned this lesson after World War II, especially with the Cold War as well, that, hey, appeasing people who aren't your friends doesn't really end well, as we see with Ukraine and Russia, where we're now all spending billions of dollars to try and help out a country that we could have helped out if we just were tough on Russia, or maybe a little bit more sympathetic to their claims. I'm not so much. I think, in the grand scheme of things, Ukraine should have been in NATO. We should really just put the pressure on Russia when we can, because I think we need to force them to become friendly. Sometimes you need to beat a nation down to make them friendly, i.e. Germany and Japan. Some of our two best allies. We had to beat the shit out of them to, make them our buddies. But what scares me about this development, I think it's good that the Europeans are kind of being tough on the situation. I truly do believe that. But what does scare me a little bit is, what does Israel do? Iran does not like Israel. If Iran has a nuclear weapon, a true blue nuclear weapon, I don't think Israel is going to allow it. I think they will preemptively strike on the country of Iran. How that proceeds, not sure. Do I think they're going to invade them militarily? I don't know. I don't think. Do they have probably the capabilities to do so? Sure, but can they sustain it without help from exterior powers, i.e. the United States? That is yet to be seen. I think Israel's military could probably go toe-to-toe with the, the Revolutionary Guard or whatever. I think they're not called the IRA, because that's the Irish version. But, the Iranian, let's just say Iranian army. I think they could easily go toe-to-toe with them. From an Air Force perspective, they would probably, crush them. But what I could see is a preemptive strike, speaking of the Air Forces, on these bases. I think that they're, cyber warfare, most of these centrifuges and all those sorts of things that are creating this enriched uranium have to be connected to computers that are connected to networks. And I think cyber espionage may become a real true blue thing with Israel here in the time being. I don't know how much America, of course, we're probably in the know of what Israel wants to do, but how much control do we truly have over them if they want to go this route? I empathize with them, because this is a country, Iran, that wants to see them wiped off the face of the earth, just kind of like a lot of their neighbors. And Iran has, if Russia has ambitions for Ukraine and all of Eastern Europe, well, Iran has ambitions over the entire Middle East, and they want to be the hegemon over the entire Middle East, which countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, even Syria, even though Syria is getting a little more buddy-buddy with them, but Jordan especially, they don't want any part of that. It even threatens Turkey a little bit too. this is just where geopolitics gets complicated. When you start peeling back the onions, it just shows it's not as easy as everyone wants to think. People think that, oh, America has two big oceans. We can just sit here and hold ourselves in tight and we'll be okay. We'll have a warm little blanket over ourselves. We have Mexico to the bottom, Canada to the top, and we'll be all right. That's not how it works, people. Unfortunately, I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy for us to just sit here, do our own thing, and the world could keep on spinning without our intervention and everything will be okay. But the reason everything is even semi-okay right now is due to the American presence in the world. It would get a lot worse if we let the Europeans take over the role and have to do things their way. Because I think if we look at the 1718 and early 1900s, did not go so hot. Maybe the Europeans enriched themselves, but everybody else wasn't doing too great, besides America. So that said, it's concerning. Europe had a good statement on the fact. They were saying that if this is true, some of the ambassadors here, let me just see if I can't read the article here. So again, I think I mentioned 90% is what you need for enrichment. 84% is what they got. European leaders said this would be an unprecedented and extremely grave development, which I think would mean that JCPOA, that joint plan of action that I discussed just a touch earlier on, that may be in jeopardy, that 2015 deal, which I think is good. Listen, Trump was not good at packaging his arguments, okay? I don't think anyone can say that with a straight face, that, oh, he was a great communicator. But when it comes to his foreign policy and his administration's foreign policy, besides the brashness and sort of stupidity and a couple of things with NATO that weren't very smart, for the most part, it was pretty sound. Wanted to get out of the JCPOA. I think that was a horrible move by Obama. Liberals, when it comes to foreign policy, God bless them. I think some of their ideas domestically are at least admirable, even though I think they're foolhardy. They're at least admirable. When it comes to their geopolitical ambitions, they're just nonsensical. It's going to make the world a worse place, just bar none. I mean, look at what some of the things, and again, people will say, oh, well, it was Trump, blah, 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 blah. You can make this argument, circular. But the way I see it, some of the things that people of the progressive bent, not just liberals, there are some Democrats who are very dry-eyed when it comes to, what's going on in the world. There are some Republicans who are just as crazy as the progressives. Look at Tucker Carlson. He thinks we should just be sitting here and doing nothing. That's just idiotic. And the guy he portrays on TV is pretty idiotic too. So that's stuff that worries me. I'm very curious what Europe will do if they're now going to sort of come back to the American route, because it looks like Biden is pushing off of having a nuclear agreement with Iran. I don't think this helps anything. I think it just makes everything harder. Hopefully that brings the Europeans more to our side so we can have a tougher stance. But at the same token, if we have a tougher stance, do they lean back and sort of get deeper enthralled with Russia and China? How does China manage these relationships when it comes to Iran and Russia? Sort of their two stalwart allies in the world, the people that they can exert the most influence over, besides maybe North Korea. They don't really have good bedfellows. And I know China doesn't want to be as, I don't know the right word. I know they don't want to be as in between a rock and a hard place with their allies. They want to be able to have cachet around the world. I think Africa, South America is sort of where a lot of these games get played because they're emerging markets. It's propaganda fest, right? Who is going to believe who? I think the West and America sits in a better spot to engage with African countries and South American countries on morals and principles. But money talks, and there's a lot of corrupt people in the world. So maybe China, just with its vast amount of resources, is able to, corrupt its way to the top. There are probably people who think that's exactly what America did, but that's neither here nor there. Let's transition, though. Let's cap this all off with a little bit of culture because we've been running long here. Things have been going a little bit crazy in this country. I don't know if it's just things that we can now see just due to the advent of social media, Twitter, and YouTube, but There was a kid in, I believe it was Florida, it was Flagler County, who beat down I'm going to bring this up, who beat down his teacher for taking his Switch. Nuts. The whole thing is nuts. But let's see here, because this is a commentator who I thought his video was enlightening. For those of you who did not see it, teacher took this kid's Switch. This dude is 6'6", 270 pounds. The teacher's a lady, white lady, who probably 5'6", 5'7" at most. Let's just say she's a $180. Let's put some pounds on her. She wasn't once you see this video. But what this kid does is she just goes and beats the absolute dog piss out of her for taking his Switch. And so I want you to hear what he said as he's being arrested. So here we go. Listen to this.
Am I going to jail?
Yes, you are.
For how long?
According to the arrest report, the suspect told investigators that he was upset that the employee took his Nintendo Switch game away from him and made
So let's beat the shit out of the teacher because of that. They just
comments that when he comes back, he's going to kill her.
Why is this young man?
That's crazy. And this is the commentator here talking about something. But what I want to see is if it'll say. So let's go here to just give a little notion of how this went down. That's the teacher right there, lifeless looking on the floor, gets knocked out. Let's see if it shows him just going to town on her. Uh-oh. Load. Come on now. Come on now. Get up. Load. Of course, this is how it goes. This is how the internet rolls. When you want something to be done, it doesn't want to do it for you.
According to the arrest report, the suspect told investigators that he was.
This teacher has been in fear. And
Okay,
she
he
knows he's
doesn't
gonna
show
crack.
up. But what you can get is where this lady is right here. This is where the incident starts. This gentleman here takes her, pushes her. She falls to the ground. And as you can see by sort of his arm right there, he is just going to absolute town on this lady. I mean, blows to the back of the head. She's on the ground. If people weren't there to stop it, she's dead. I bet you she is dead. This guy, and I don't care if you're mentally retarded, mentally incapacitated. Again, the R word, I can say it. Have people in my life who are mentally whatever. I want to be gracious because I don't want YouTube to dock me, but it's stupid that that's even a thing. Mental retardation is a medical term, whatever. Doesn't matter what this kid's situation is. I don't care if he's autistic, whatever. To do that to another human being with clearly no remorse, he goes on and says that he wants to now kill her when he comes back. He should never touch this school again. He should be in juvenile detention. And God forbid what his home life was. I mean, if I had to guess, and I don't want to, play in stereotypes here because now half the country is like this seemingly, I would only imagine there's not a strong father figure in this kid's life or one at all. And this is what can happen. My dad died when I was young. I had a mother who was a single mother for all intents and purposes and had a lot going on. And I was the youngest child. She didn't neglect me by any ways. I love my mom more than anything. But I was allowed, just due to her, not being a man, I was able to really push the boundaries of what I could do as a younger person and act out in ways that a young man should not be able to act out, and that I know for a fact if my father were alive would have been alive. Wouldn't have happened. It bled over sometimes in the schools. I didn't get in fights or whatnot. I sure as hell didn't beat a teacher that was a woman half to death. But without a father figure in your life like that, it can make your emotions go a little bit haywire. Young men of that age are full of testosterone. This dude is 6'6", 270 pounds. Whether or not he's a weightlifter or whatnot, he's got a size advantage over most people in this world. And even if he's not a boxer or anything like that, blows like that can really, really do damage. And I only hope that the systems at work can get this kid help, because he's still got, a lot of life to live, and hopefully he does better. And speaking of people doing better, we just need a culture of people that are doing better. Again, I think a lot of this has always sort of been there. One, we have a lot more people than we ever used to, and we have a lot more access to what's going on in the world just through the internet. But something that is crazy to me, I know one or two shows ago, we saw a gentleman just murder someone, not murder, attempted murder somebody, excuse me, in a convenience store because of God knows what. Shoots him dead to rights with a pistol, comes back with what looks like an AK-47 semi-auto and blast him. I don't think I showed this on the show, but there was another video going around where a gentleman who had a co-worker at a gas station, another gas station incident, who he got the shotgun and in front of the dude's kid, because his kid was there. I'm assuming his co-worker that he inevitably shot was the owner, let's say, and the kid was there. The young worker, I think was 22, 23, gets a shotgun, and while his potentially boss or co-worker has his back turned, shoots him with a shotgun. I mean, this close, right in the back of his head, kills him on the spot in front of his son. And what does this dude do as evilly as you ever could think? He goes, washes his hands, and eats something like nothing happened while the dead body is still there. You can go look it up right now if you want. And just the chillingness of it, it is just the lack of remorse, the lack of just the contemptuousness of it. It is absurd. And you never know what happened beforehand. You never know what's happened previously, but it never excuses just cold-blooded murder. And speaking of cold-blooded murder and something we don't know what happened previously, I want to show you what happened here in St. Louis. It was yesterday, right? Because today is Tuesday. It was yesterday when this happened. And this just goes to show, I'm going to wrap the show up on this because it's running a little long. But if you want to talk about just cold-blooded murder, watch this, just absolute callousness, absolute evil shown to you right here.
It sounded like a fucking, I said that was a gunshot.
Holding his pistol right here in the middle of downtown.
I didn't hear it. I mean, maybe a big shot, but it seems fine. No blood. Yeah, there it goes.
Homeless man sitting here on the ground.
No, he just put.
You just watch this scumbag.
Oh my God! He just fucking killed him.
As you can tell, a death ensues, and it's something to me that is absurd. We already have a lot going on in this world, and for things like this to be happening. Again, I don't know if it's at a accelerated clip, but just due to the fact that we have more exposure to it now because everyone's got a phone and everyone's got a phone that takes good camera. It's just sad. It's sad. And initial thoughts, you're trying to say, why isn't that guy doing anything? However, he may not have a gun. He may not have the stones to do anything about it. But it seems pretty obvious to me that something could have been done, whether it be calling the police. Who knows how quickly it takes the police to get there. But if you don't have a weapon, I can understand your, your hesitancy to actually get yourself involved in this situation. So I don't blame the guy who's taking the video. In a way, I'm glad he took the video. So there's dead to rights. I know that's maybe not the best thing to say, but it's just in cold, hard facts. There ain't, you have to say allegedly, but there ain't no doubt that dude just killed a man for an argument, whatever the reason may be. No reason to kill a man like that who clearly is presenting no harm to him, at least in that context. We don't know what happened before, but in my opinion, there's nothing that happens before that should lead to that incident right there. Now, I want to wrap the show up on something that's at least a little bit lighter. But koalas can sometimes be violent. And I want to transition because this video gave me a little bit of a laugh. Koalas are cute. I love koalas, but koalas can be out for blood every now and again. Koalas may even be killers. So I want to show you this video of this kid. You know, there's this anti-Asian hate movement going on in the world. Well, apparently koalas may be a little bit racist themselves. So let's look at this video here of this cute, cuddly little koala. You can see him right here in the foreground. Just watch this little guy. Sees him, sees his prey. Now I'm after you. Starts biting, pulling. What is going on? This kid obviously is fine. He probably got a little bit of scratches. But this little koala, this cute little koala, I don't know. What is it? Is there something about like black and white stripes? Is that like red for a bull, you know? He just couldn't handle it anymore. Maybe he thought his legs were invisible so he could just attack the blue. But yeah, this little boy right here, what looks to be an Asian boy, he's probably just trying to say, oh my God, it's a cute little koala. Probably wants to pet it. And then the koala is like, not today, son. I am coming for you. Speaking of coming for you. Okay, let's rephrase that. Speaking of just where we're at right now. Listen, the world is not as bad of a place as we all want to make it out to be. I know that what we talked about here at the end of the show makes the world seem all evil. It's not. There's a bunch of good. There's more good people out there than there are bad. But I think we need to sometimes highlight the bad so we as a society can point out, hey, that's bad. That's evil. Let's make sure to realize evil cannot go unpunished. Bad cannot go unpunished, so we can keep, hopefully, those people who are considering doing bad things on the straight and narrow, get them the help they need, and get people who are victims of the bad and the evil the justice they deserve. So there's still good stuff going on in the world. As we highlighted, we still have sports. We still have fun going on. I need to probably, when I'm doing these solo shows, figure out how to end on a higher note. But what is a good note is Reed Carter should hopefully be back on Thursday. Who knows? Maybe he'll text me last minute saying that, hey, can't make it again, and we'll have another little solo session, another chat with Chase, a cutting to the chase, if you will. But we'll see. If you like the video, please share, like, subscribe. I'm going to try and get this podcast onto I shouldn't say a podcast because we clearly don't have a podcast format, but little note, we're going to try and get it on YouTube as well. That's where our preferred avenue is. So please go to YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment if you have something to say. I can be contentious, but I'm also always willing to have the discussion with people and get ideas. So do that. If you have any ideas for the show, put them there as well. We're going to be on again Thursday. Make sure to have a good rest of tonight, which is Wednesday, and we will see you on a Friday episode. So enjoy yourselves. We're on, but now we're out. See you later. Adios. Avidase. And to our Indian contingent, keep going strong. We love you over there in the subcontinent of India. I don't know if this is right, but namaste. See you guys.